If you've followed true crime stories in America, you've definitely heard the name Murdaugh. But who exactly are the Murdaughs? And how did they go from being South Carolina's most powerful legal dynasty to the center of one of the country's most shocking scandals? For nearly a century, the Murdaugh family was synonymous with influence, wealth, and power in the South Carolina Lowcountry. Their name carried weight in every courtroom across the region, until it all came crashing down, unraveling secrets that had been buried for generations. The Murdaugh family's story begins in the early 1900s with Randolph Murdaugh Sr., who established a small law practice in Hampton County. That firm would later become one of the most dominant legal forces in the state. Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Ellsroth, and Detrick. For decades, the family held the position of solicitor, essentially the top prosecutor, across several counties in South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit. This allowed them to control not just the courtroom, but the political and social narrative of their community. Randolph Sr. passed the torch to his son, Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr., who continued the family's legal legacy for nearly 40 years. Under his leadership, the Murdaugh name became associated with both justice and intimidation. Locals described them as untouchable, a family that knew everyone, defended everyone, and could influence nearly any decision. After Buster Jr.'s passing, the legacy was continued by his son, Randolph Murdaugh III, who served as solicitor until 2006. That's when his son, Alex Murdaugh, began to rise in influence. Alex Murdaugh was born into privilege, raised to carry on the family's name and reputation. For years, he practiced law alongside his father and cousins, maintaining the Murdaugh dominance in South Carolina's legal circles. But behind the polished image, cracks began to show. Financial mismanagement, misuse of funds, and eventually, allegations of corruption started to surface. Those suspicions grew darker when a series of mysterious deaths began to be linked to the family, including the 2015 death of Stephen Smith, the 2018 death of the Murdaugh's housekeeper Gloria Satterfield, and later, the tragic 2019 boating accident involving Alex's son, Paul Murdaugh. The turning point came in June 2021, when Alex's wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, were found murdered at the family's hunting estate. The shocking crime shattered the illusion of the Murdaugh dynasty and exposed decades of hidden corruption, deception, and greed. As investigations unfolded, Alex Murdaugh himself became the focus, eventually convicted for the murders and facing numerous other charges. Today, the Murdaugh family tree stands as a haunting reminder of how power, when unchecked, can destroy even the most respected legacies. From a dynasty of prosecutors to a family torn apart by tragedy, the rise and fall of the Murdaughs will remain one of the most unforgettable chapters in American true crime history. If you followed true crime stories in America, you've definitely heard the name Murdaugh. But who exactly are the Murdaughs? And how did they go from being South Carolina's most powerful legal dynasty to the center of one of the nation's most shocking scandals? For nearly a century, the Murdaughs ruled the Lowcountry, a family name that commanded respect, influence, and even fear. Their empire was built on law, politics, and power, but beneath that prestige lay secrets that would one day bring the entire dynasty crashing down. The Murdaugh story begins with Randolph Murdaugh Sr., the patriarch who founded a small law firm in Hampton County in 1910. What started as a modest practice grew into one of the most dominant legal institutions in South Carolina. Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Ellsroth, and Detrick. Randolph Sr. didn't just build a business, he built an empire. In 1920, he became the first elected solicitor of the 14th Judicial Circuit, a position that gave him control over prosecutions across 5 counties, power that would stay in the family for almost 90 years. After Randolph Sr.'s death in 1940, his son, Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr., took over both the family law firm and the solicitor position. Known for his charm and wit in the courtroom, Buster Jr. maintained the family's influence through relationships with judges, law enforcement, and politicians. Under his tenure, the Murdaughs became an unstoppable force, the kind of family everyone in South Carolina's Lowcountry knew not to cross. For nearly half a century, the Murdaugh name meant power, prestige, and protection. That legacy continued with the third generation, Randolph Murdaugh III. Like his father and grandfather, he became solicitor and upheld the family's legal dominance until 2006. But even as the family's reputation remained strong, times were changing. The legal landscape was evolving, oversight was increasing, and whispers about favoritism and questionable legal practices began to surface. Yet, the Murdaughs continued to project an image of untouchable success, bolstered by generations of privilege and connection. Then came Alex Murdaugh, the 4th generation. Born into immense privilege, Alex inherited not just his family's wealth, but also their influence. He worked as a lawyer alongside his father and cousins, representing clients across the Lowcountry. For years, everything seemed perfect. A successful career, a beautiful family, and a respected name. But behind the facade, Alex was living a double life. Investigators would later uncover years of financial mismanagement, stolen client funds, and lies that hinted at something far darker. In 2015, the cracks in the Murdaugh dynasty began to show. That year, a local teenager named Stephen Smith was found dead under mysterious circumstances near a rural road. Though his death was initially ruled a hit and run, rumors quickly spread about a possible connection to the Murdaugh family. The case went cold for years, but it would later be reopened as investigators began to re-examine the Murdaugh family's involvement in several strange and tragic incidents. Tragedy struck again in 2018 when Gloria Satterfield, the family's longtime housekeeper, died after what was described as a fall at the Murdaugh home. What followed was a complex web of alleged insurance fraud. Prosecutors later accused Alex Murdaugh of stealing millions from a settlement meant for Gloria's sons. This was the first public glimpse of the financial crimes that would eventually expose Alex's empire of deceit. In 2019, the family's reputation took another devastating hit when Alex's younger son, Paul Murdaugh, was involved in a fatal boating accident that claimed the life of 19-year-old Mallory Beach. The case gained national attention, especially when it was revealed that Paul was allegedly intoxicated and facing charges of boating under the influence. Many in the community began to question whether the Murdaugh influence would once again shield one of their own from accountability. In 2019, the family's reputation took another devastating hit when Alex's younger son, Paul Murdaugh, was involved in a fatal boating accident that claimed the life of 19-year-old Mallory Beach. The case gained national attention, especially when it was revealed that Paul was allegedly intoxicated and facing charges of boating under the influence. Many in the community began to question whether the Murdaugh influence would once again shield one of their own from accountability.